I think at that stage we were maybe like 2 years in. One of my friends, she came to me and she was like, well, are you guys okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, why? Like, why are you asking? And she's like, oh, I just saw Sam on Tinder. And I was like, oh. And I just laughed. I was like, lol.
Hello, it's Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Us podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
And this week on another relationship topic, we got a few relationship ones going on. We actually talked a bit about this in a few episodes ago. We were talking about ask us your relationship questions. And this one, we wanted to dive deeper into the question, and it was, should you ask your partner about your past relationships?
Tasty.
Yeah, and the reason why we wanted to go deeper in this one is because we found this question on a forum and we found the comments really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Comments were lit like a bloody fire.
mostly the majority said no, but we disagree.
Well, yeah. We'll see how we go. Let's jump into it.
Okay, going straight into the question, would you ask your partner about their past relationship?
To me, yes, I definitely would. And I believe you got to know who you're dealing with. You got to understand the relationship. I'm talking from you're trying to go for a long-term relationship. You want to know everything to some degree. And at least you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree. Before I read these comments over and thought about this question, I would not have ever thought that I wouldn't ask about past relationships. But I guess I'm coming from a point that I'm not asking about like the who, what, when, where, and why. Like I don't need to see a face. I don't need to know a name. It's more like asking about past experiences. Like what did you learn? What didn't go well? Like it sounds a bit like an interview, but it's not like interviewing that person. It's just trying to get to know the other person that you're trying to get into a relationship with. Again, like you said, it's with the intent of having a long-term relationship. So it would be good to know like what you've learned. It could be your mistakes, it could be their mistakes, but what you've learned from these. And to me, that shows how much you've grown or how much you're willing to learn from these situations.
Exactly. The whole point of relationships is you get into them, you may, it might fail, sure, but you got to bloody learn from them. You make the mistakes, you learn from them, and you fucking move on. And that's the whole point of asking questions about the past, potentially. You're not interrogating the person, you're just asking questions. And I think it's important to know somewhat what has happened.
Yeah, and on the flip side, going against what everyone said in the comments, to me, it's a red flag if this person did not answer these questions about their past. Obviously, I'm coming from the point where I am asking respectfully. I'm not just like, tell me about your past. Like, what happened? Why didn't it work out? Like, just having an actual deep conversation with each other, trying to get to know each other. And if they're closed off in sharing about their past, to me, I'm like, okay, maybe they did something that's so shady that they don't want to share. Like they've cheated and they don't want to share about their past, or something happened where they're not open. Whether or not it's like a really bad situation, or even if it's just a light situation that didn't go so well, if you're not open to share about it, to me, in the future, in my relationship with this person, are they going to be just as shady and not open to share about something?
Not just about shady, but from a perspective of, did they learn from it? Did they move on from it? Or are they still hung up on it? Because if they are still hung up on it, then potentially it could be a roadblock or a speed bump for your current relationship. And you don't want that shit to happen, right? You want to make sure that it works.
Yeah, or if they feel like they're always in the right, that person was in the wrong. And if they're going to see things like that, I want to know if that's how they think. So to me, there's many red flags with not sharing about your past relationship.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment too. And if we were to flip it on the other side and discuss on the fact of, well, why should we know? Or we shouldn't really know because that's the past. The past is the past and the present is the present. You should be dealing with your current relationship, and whatever that happened in the past is whatever. which I understand, and that is true to some degree. But knowing exactly what the past relationship was is really important.
No, but I don't know, I don't agree with that because if you're gonna say not you, I mean like if people are gonna think in that perspective where like the past is the past, so are you not going to ask about anything else in their past? Like what did you like as a kid when you grew up? What happened in school? Like did you like high school? Like all these kind of things that are in the past, you ask about them as well. So I feel like this asking about the past relationship fits in a similar category. It's like just getting to know what you were as a person, what were you like in the past, or what did you do in the past. These are all the same things. Just because it's your past relationship doesn't mean it's like it's a taboo and you can't ask about it. You ask about people what they were like when they were kids. It's the same thing to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, just I guess reading the comments, yeah, really had me.
Yeah, I was mind blown that there was that many people that said no. I would say like 99% of these comments said no.
Yeah, a lot of people said no. We shouldn't really be asking. We shouldn't really be caring, and we shouldn't really have the no of.
It's just like a no-go zone.
Yeah,
technically, that's what they
which
said.
yeah, and I thought that was a bit strange, but yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, for you personally, did you ever feel it was awkward to ask about the past?
I don't think it was awkward. I think it was more the timing of when to ask the question.
Mm,
Like, for an example, if I was with someone for 3 months, I wouldn't be asking that person about the past. And that's an example. And that's subjective depending on how you think of it. But from my perspective, I wouldn't really be asking, I couldn't really care less because I'm more focused on you at that.
trying to get that to know
That's
that
right.
person.
I'm trying to get to know you. I'm trying to get to know what your favorite color is, what's your birthday, what floats your boat. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know if I agree, but I agree in the fact that you don't just bring it up straight away. Like give it some time to get to know each other first and like get a feel of the basics, I guess. Like learn the basics of like the values and how they like to do things, personal preferences. Do you guys work well together? And then when you're like, okay, I really do like this person, that could be 3 months, that could be 5 months, could be two, whatever it is when you're comfortable, where you talking more about the relationship, talking about the future, like if we do get together, things like that, then yeah, you can like bring up this topic of maybe past relationships.
So you don't think it was ever awkward for you, in your opinion?
I guess there would be a level of awkwardness because it is quite a personal thing, like talking about it. And bringing it up comes with bringing past mistakes or things that didn't work out or why you may have done something that didn't work out. So there is a level of awkwardness to it, but it doesn't stop me from asking. And again, I agree with you in terms of the timing. Like it has to be the right time to ask it. So because by the time I get to the point where I'm okay to ask this, even though it's a bit awkward, I feel like we've already built that communication and that foundation where we're okay to ask about these things.
Yeah. And that exactly relates to the timing thing that I was talking about before, which is important, right?
Yeah, so linking back to what you said before, like talking about these things builds a better relationship. And I feel like if you ask these earlier on, obviously like past the getting to know each other stage, it builds a great foundation for a healthier relationship in the future because you've already talked about the difficult conversations, including this, talking about past relationships. And my context of asking about past relationships would be like, oh, what happened? Like, how come it didn't work out? Or like, what type of relationships did you look for in the past? And how come you like, is this still the same? Has this changed? And that draws out maybe some values that you look for in a relationship. Like, these are the type of things that I would ask. I wouldn't be asking about like name, person, like who it is, photo, like those kind of things. It's more deeper into past relationships, but like the values, lessons, and things that you got out of this.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I wouldn't be interrogating and be like, who's this bitch? Tell me.
Show me her Facebook.
I'm going to
Are you guys still
Instagram.
friends?
I'm going to stalk this motherfucker.
Yeah, but asking this earlier on, I feel like helps you learn about each other and builds a better foundation. And from asking these difficult questions, it makes it easier in the future for you to ask more difficult questions if you need to bring anything up.
Now, I can see people disagreeing with this, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. Do you think there is maybe a potential time that we can say, well, maybe this is a question, or maybe this could be a scenario where you've been in a relationship for at least a year or two or three before you start digging deeper into their past in terms of understanding how they dealt with these things to help build a better foundation for the relationship?
Right. So you're waiting 2 or 3 years before you ask
Yeah,
about
because
these things.
I can imagine people coming from a perspective of, okay, well, look, I've been with this person for a year. Sure, we know each other, we love each other, we're in a honeymoon phase. I want to take this relationship further. And I'm not saying getting married, but I'm saying more like, okay, I want to take this a bit more serious. Now I want to know more about this person in terms of maybe their past relationships, how they think, what ticks them.
I don't know why it would be why these people would have waited a year for this to come out though, because if you're in it for a year, then like I'm talking in a context of you've never asked about the past. You've dated for a year and then you're like, okay, now I'm gonna ask about the past. Me being that person who received that question would be like, whoa, where did this come from? Or like, why are you asking me now? Like, are you suspicious of me? Or I don't know, like these questions would be like, why now and not earlier?
Yeah, fair. And that makes a good point. It really depends on your relationship and how well you guys vibe. And I think the vibe really defines how comfortable or when is the time to maybe talk about these things.
Yeah, but the reason why I say bringing up earlier builds better trust in a healthy relationship, because in our context, we did talk about these things quite earlier on. I can't remember because we've been together for so long, like over 10 years now. Can't remember if it explicitly talked like directly about past relationships, but we brought up a lot of deep conversations about past experiences, past challenges, and all those kind of things. And because we were so open with each other, like very early on, also given the case that we were friends before for 6 years, made that easier. It might be more difficult if you've really just met this person 3 months ago. But that really helped to me, in my eyes, built our foundation where now I fully trust you. And say you just went out or like just did something, and I wouldn't have to like self doubt or think about like, oh, what are you doing? Or like, how do you feel about this certain situation? Are you angry? Or like, what are you thinking now? Are you doubting our relationship? I don't have these type of questions. I just fully trust our relationship. I trust you. And I really feel like this part of opening up early and also talking about these past experiences really does help.
Yeah, and I guess from that perspective, the friendship thing really helped settle your mind in understanding and being comfortable with our relationship, I guess.
Yeah, I think it makes it easier to open up and ask about these questions, which I guess I know not everyone has that type of relationship before they start or get into a relationship,
Yeah.
but that definitely helped just building that foundation, which I guess it kind of shows that if you build that initial friendship first, like truly go into a relationship and build that friendship, getting to know each other as like a friend sort of thing and understanding each other for who they really are rather than what you want them to be as a partner, that really helps. Then you start talking about these deeper conversations.
Shit. What I really want to get into is let's take a dive into trip of memory lane in the past. I wanna know what we used to think back in the day in terms of our mindset before dating, and what we used to think.
You mean the mindset on asking about past relationships?
Yeah,
Well, I don't have that many past relationship experiences. I feel like I'm just trying to put myself back into like 20-year-old me. I've always been a curious person in nature. So, regardless of what age or where I am, I still would have asked about the past. I think the only mindset difference was that it would be a daunting and scary question to ask, and I wouldn't know when to ask, but I would still have that drive to be like, I'm curious to know. What about
I
you?
well, when I was a young buck, right, back in the 20s,
All right.
when I was a young buck, I was, as I mentioned, I was quite upfront. So I wouldn't say I wasn't afraid, but I was more curious, and I would ask as it is to some degree. But how I used to really do it was
Before you ask that question, I wanted to know back then, the young buck you, what did you want to know about their past relationships?
That's a good question.
I know.
That's
I
a
ask
really
the
good
best
question.
questions.
Because I think I was quite immature in terms of what I was wanting to know.
So you want to know if the previous guy was hot or not?
I was more curious about their because look, I was quite
Typical boy.
typical boy, so I wasn't really thinking with my real brain, to be honest.
Your second brain.
I was thinking more my second brain. I was more curious like how active they were or what they were more like in terms of that situation, which look, I don't know why, but I was like that. But I was curious about, their past relationships. Why did it end? And what they want to do differently.
Actually, now that you put it like that, like this thought just came to my mind. I think when I ask about the past relationships, it's more like it's still asking about them, like what they did in that relationship, what worked, why didn't it work out. But it's all about them. It's never about that the ex.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, what did that ex do? Did they buy you stuff? It was mostly about them in that past relationship and what was that experience like. And I feel like if you're curious about that, that makes sense because it's still trying to get to know them. You're not trying to get to know about the ex.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like there's any less, like, the ex has no relevance to your relationship now, unless there was something that this partner said that they did that they really enjoyed. Then, yeah, maybe you might want to know a bit more about what happened there. But I wouldn't openly be like, what was your ex like? I wouldn't ask that first. I wouldn't be like, what type of person is he? And stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to relate it to me back then. Like I said, mine was very much just them, similar to you to some degree.
That's why it came to mind because you said, even though, yeah, you were immature, but you're asking about like was it, how active they were in the past. As immature as some people might think that is, you're still asking about the girl. You're not asking about like how many times did you do it with your ex or.
Yeah. So it was more about her in that instance. But that, I guess, from what I was really curious, that's how I used to think, was I would ask and talk to them, try to relate to them or be relatable to some degree. And that's how I would ask the question. Or I would soften the blow by relating it to me, or I would bring in an example, and then that's how I would start the conversation.
So what were the main misconceptions or main reasons why people oppose to asking about the past?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, right? So in the comment section, this was where
The juicy guts
the juicy
were.
shit was really at. And it was fucking crazy how, like, it was legit a bickering battle in the comment section. There was a lot of people that disagreed with the concept of just knowing and asking the question of what happened in the past. And there were other people who were obviously negating that. But the common misconception was knowing about the past would change how you felt about that person at the present time.
What?
So
That makes no
so if you
sense.
ask the question of, hey, what happened in the past, they were saying, or the people were saying, that you shouldn't give two shits about knowing about the past because that has no relevance to you now in your present relationship with the person.
It does sort of, because if they cheated or one person was just extremely rude in the way they were approaching, or there's some sort of issue that created the breakup, then I feel like there is a relevance because this is still that person's personality. They're not going to change just because they got a new girlfriend or a new partner or a new boyfriend, whatever. Their personality still carries on into this relationship that you're trying to get into. So I feel like there is a relevance.
Yeah, and I agree. Another misconception is asking about the past relationship will define the person's character in terms of the quality of their commitment to your relationship. So if they had multiple partners, it means they're a slut, or it means that they're dirty and they're not capable of having a long-term fucking relationship.
Yeah, like I get where they're coming from, but that is still an honest truth. And whether or not that's going to happen in the future or they're going to change themselves, I feel like you still need to know, because if you come clean, like, yeah, I was a player in the past, then you start with that understanding, and then maybe you're like, oh, but I'm looking to change. I'm really hoping to settle down with someone that I can stick with, and I'm not happy with what I've done in the past. That gives you that open forum, that open conversation and mutual understanding that this is what's happened, rather than later on you've dated for 2 years and you're like, wait, I just found out from someone else that you were seeing two people at the same time, or you cheated on your ex. Like, I wouldn't want to know about that like a year or even 6 months, or even when we've gotten together, then I'll find that out.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But I can see, I guess, the other side of that. If you had a lot of partners and you've got a history, then that's where that negative thought of, oh, this guy or this girl, which is a bit dirty.
Yeah, but that just comes down to that person understanding on how open that, or how willing they are to move forward with this relationship, with knowing that this person did maybe sleep with 10 people or whatever it is, but it's still an open conversation to be had, in my opinion. Going back to what we said, this is for a long-term relationship. We're wanting to stick with this person, you want to know. And yeah, it may not be a pretty conversation, but you need to have these difficult conversations, regardless if it's about the past or if it's something that you did. Like, maybe you used to steal a lot, or you weren't open about certain situations. It's still these conversations that you need to have. They're difficult, but at least now this person that you're trying to get into a relation with, you both know what's happened. And I won't find out something that I didn't know and be like, whoa, I didn't know that this person had this side of him.
When you put it from your perspective, it's more like, well, you're having that open, candid conversation where it's on the table. You know what's happening, you know what you're dealing with, and it's about moving from that and moving it together, rather than sort of dismissing it because of face value of what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, because you did this and that. Oh, fuck off. I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah, like, I don't want to hide anything in the basement just because I'm not proud of it. I would still share it, because linking back to another conversation that we had, being vulnerable and being open and honest, this is why we need to have these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I can think of off the top of the rip.
Yeah, these are our opinions, but trying to be on the other side, trying to understand why people would say no, outside of what we just already answered, why it's not a good idea to ask about the past, just trying to see it from their perspective.
Yeah, look, I can understand why people have said these things. And from the perspective of, look, just asking the question, now that you know, it's the term, like, it's a word that people say, the statement of what is seen cannot be unseen, because now you know what that person's past. So for an example, if I asked you and you used to be an avid sleeper, you used to go around different dudes, whatever it
Can
is.
confirm I wasn't, guys. Don't take the wrong
Whatever
idea.
floated your boat back in the day. And now that I know all these vivid memories and things that you've done, I now assume that you're going to be doing this and that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just comes back down to the way that you communicate and being like, yeah, that is what I did in the past. I'm not looking to do that. So you're kind of giving that reassurance. Like, either you say that is what I enjoy doing, or I'm not looking to take my relationship in the future in that direction. It's also how you communicate where you're going from here onwards. Like, you shared about the past. This is what I've done. This is what I'm looking for in the future. So, like, as much as I want to try and understand from the other people's point of view, I still feel like it's a good idea to ask about the past. Just my own personal opinion. But again, comes across how you talk about it.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with you there, because I feel I would want to know. Then at least I know that I can trust that we can have that conversation, and I can trust that you on the opposite side can say the same thing back to me. Thinking it from the opposite side, if I never asked you, then I wouldn't really know how you really felt.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't know that you're open to actually have this type of conversation.
Yeah. So, speaking on being open to have these type of conversations, how do we approach or start these type of delicate conversations? Like, how would you do it?
Yeah, so just relating it back to my past, it's a difficult question or it's a difficult scenario to begin with, right? You want to know, you're keen to know, but you don't want to be intrusive.
Yeah, especially to someone that you only just met, I guess, in a
Yeah,
way.
you're relatively fresh, maybe a year or whatever it is at that time, whatever you're comfortable. I would try to relate or set an example question to get them to bring out some of the answers. So, for an example, I would talk about like going shopping or something like that, and I would try to relate that back as a question to maybe her past. Like, oh yeah, did you used to do this? Did you do this often with your past relationships? And try and sort of reel the answer out from the
Like
person.
ease it in.
Yeah, that's right. So slowly ease it in so that I'm getting some sort of feedback from the person.
Mm.
And then as soon as the person opens up and I can see that she's, more comfortable, willing to talk, then maybe I'll straight shoot the questions.
Yeah, I think going back to what we said earlier, it's like get to know them first. In a way, kind of builds trust within each other first, getting to know each other. And at least you know that you're trying to actually get to know each other, not just, trying to get each other for a quick relationship or something that's short. And you're actually genuinely wanting to to know each other. And that naturally leads into more deeper conversations. So when you get into these deeper conversations, I would do similar to what you do, ask like hypothetical questions like, did you ever call your ex-girlfriends like cute names, or did you guys have like, I don't know, what do you call each other, did you guys call each other babe? Like asking these type of questions, or like what would you do in this situation, hypothetical. And that's like an easy way to start into these conversations. Then over time, maybe you might feed one deeper conversation, so like what happened in the past. And maybe the first time the other person may not be too open to answering, and that's fine. Like, respect that. Unless you felt a certain way, like, oh, they're a bit closed, it felt a bit off. But if you're okay with it, you know that they're not open to answering that question, that's all right. Leave it. Keep doing what you're doing, getting to know each other, go on dates, and then maybe feed a similar question, or try to ask that question again and be like, hey, I know I've asked this before, but I'm really curious. Like, what happened? Or like, did you guys do this? Ask it again. And then maybe they might be open this time because now you've got to know them a bit more. So it's just like a bit of give and take, a bit of reading the situation, reading the room, get to know each other. And that sort of preps the foundation on having these deeper conversations.
Yeah. And holistically, obviously that relates to your comfort levels, being able to slowly open up and you know how that person feels and reacts to the conversation. That's why I found that asking those hypothetical questions really did help me in the past, because there were so many moments where I wanted to find out or understand more about the person, but you don't know how to approach it in a way where they could answer you directly.
Mm. And I think with us specifically, though, like coming from friends and then getting into a relationship, a lot of the times, like trying to think back, I don't think I ever, like, I rarely ever had to ask you, because a lot of the times you just shared anyway. So you shared a little bit about what happened in the past, and that gave an opening for me to kind of be curious, like have the ability to be curious and ask a little bit more, because you've already invited me to listen to that conversation. So in that case, I felt like that was also a good way to just continue on to get to know each other about past relationships.
Yeah, it's a good segue. So I helped you out a little bit there, buddy.
Yeah, well, same thing with me.
No, mate. No,
Yeah,
it didn't
yeah,
work like
yeah.
that, buddy. Relax. All right.
Rude. Didn't even want to listen to me anyway. So moving into the relationship status, now that you've made it Facebook official, Instagram official, whatever people do these days, do you see these type of conversations evolving over time? So once you're in a relationship, do you think asking about the past, like the comfortability or the ease or how you ask these questions, does it evolve?
100%. I reckon it does, because as you develop the relationship, you both develop together. You both grow together as a couple, so you understand how it works between you two. So I believe the conversations will evolve as well as you guys grow together.
I feel like, yeah, I agree with you. I feel like you continuously still be curious about each other as you learn more and more about each other. And then in those conversations, sometimes there might be some things about past relationships or past situations that might come up. And it just comes with ease. The earlier you have these difficult conversations or awkward conversations, I feel like the easier it is later on. Why are you smiling at me? Like the easier it is to ask these questions because now you're both, you know what each other are like in terms of asking questions, and you,
It's just comfort. I think the comfort levels is the biggest thing because now you're comfortable with each other on that level and the dialogue is just easier. And then obviously the dynamics of asking about the past relationships or past things that may have happened, it just makes it easier holistically.
yeah, and I guess you already have a good gauge of the other person on when it is the right time to ask as well. So you just know when to slip that question without it being awkward.
Slip the question, eh?
Yeah, slide
Just
it into the
slip it in?
DMs. Yeah,
Just
slip it in.
fucking slip it in, eh?
But say you guys have dated for quite a few years. Is it awkward to ask questions about the past then?
Well, I think you said this at the start of the conversation was if you have been with someone for a year or two or something like that, and they fucking slapped you in the face with a question about the past, and you're like, what the fuck did this come from?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, maybe it might be a bit weird, but if you have a good foundation of communicating, talking shit, then the comfort levels are there, like we said before.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this question just to see how you feel, because I feel like, so I answered the one where you didn't ask anything and then you ask a year later or many years later. Yes, that is awkward and that is weird because now it's like, where did that come from? But I feel like if we've already been asking about past relationships, talking about like things and joking around about it, and then I'm still curious a few years down the track, there's like another question I wanted to ask, like something just popped up in my head. I think that's fine to ask because I think even until now, like 10 years down, sometimes I do ask, I'm like, oh, did you ever do this in the past? And it's still about you and the past relationship, but it's just getting to know what you did. So I feel like that's okay because throughout the whole 10 years, we have these type of conversations.
Yeah. In that instance and in that example, yeah, there's nothing out of the ordinary there, right?
But the biggest controversial conversation, is it okay to know everything about your partner? Like to share anything and everything?
Look, it's subjective, but in my opinion, I think it's fine. If you're in a fucking long-term relationship where you actually see yourself being with this person potentially to marry or to just be with for a long time, then why the fuck not?
Yeah, I agree. And I like that we share everything and everything with each other because, again, that builds that good foundation. Everything is an open book, and I'm not going to, like, I don't like surprises. I don't like to be shocked about something. So if something happens, like, I'll give a really screwed up example. So there was one time you hopped onto Tinder because you've never been on the apps and you were just like, I'm going to explore and see what this app is all about. So you made a Tinder profile. I think at that stage we were maybe like 2 years in or something. You played with it. I knew about it because I was lying right next to you as you were mucking around on it. You left it, forgot about the app. I think you were still on it. One of my friends found your Tinder profile and she came to me and she was like, well, are you guys okay? And she didn't tell me about the Tinder thing at first. She's just like, oh, are you guys okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, why? Like, why are you asking? And she's like, oh, I just saw Sam on Tinder. And I was like, oh. And I just laughed. I was like, lol, it's probably because you made it. You forgot about it and then just left it. So I didn't even come to question you. I didn't ask about anything. Everything's just open and honest. And we just laughed it off because I already knew what happened. Rather than if you were making that in the dark, in your own little like corner secretly, and then my friend came and asked, then I'd be like, okay, what's happening? And even if you didn't have any intentions of actually going on Tinder to meet someone else and you were just doing it truly just to check out the check out what the app is about, but you didn't tell me about it, that would have broken down some level of trust and I would have had some like questions in my head, like, why did you make it? Like, are you bored of our relationship? Are you like just seeing what's out there? Like questions. Whereas like you did it on the spot, you just joking around, making it and just seeing what's out there just cause. And I knew about it. It built a better trust between me and you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I actually told you.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. If you look at Instagram, for an example, right? Socials and shit like that. Girls are everywhere on socials, unfortunately. So,
Unfortunately
and I
or
don't mean
fortunately?
I don't mean just girls like in general. I mean the photos, some of the shit that girls post on it is quite raunchy
Seductive.
and seductive. So, you know, when you're scrolling the Instagrams and titties come up and you're like, damn, okay. Sometimes it's a bit hard to avoid, you know? But I think the biggest thing is the communication, because I just fucking openly say shit and you're just like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you go, you're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just, I don't know. I just don't worry about these small things. And if you are curious about something, or if you're like, oh, how come you have so many girls on your Instagram or something, just ask about it. Like to me, I don't feel like there's anything that you should be hiding or feel like you should be hiding. And in a way, I feel like if I was pushy about that and like judging you or like asking you why do you have girls and just not being open to why you have that, that would push you further away and would make you feel like you can't open up to me.
Yeah, which is true.
So I would rather us both be open and honest, laugh about it, joke about it, and really put that trust in you. Because you do have a lot of girls on your Instagram.
No, I don't.
Well, like you did anyway. Whether you do or you don't, like I don't really care. Like there's nothing in me that's like, oh, I need to know what you're doing with these accounts, or like, are you talking to these girls on accounts? I really do not
I've
care.
got ass and titties all over my IGs.
I honestly do not care. And that really came from that early on trust that we've built.
On the flip side, I'm sure there's plenty of people who potentially don't agree. Like some people want to be private, and like I totally get that. They want to go, look, this is my shit. You do your own thing. Like I know there are some relationships that are like that, and that's totally fine. But I think if you're someone that wants to share or wants to know a little bit, then I think it's important to communicate that too.
Yeah,
Because-
that's really big on the values that you guys want in each other. If you want that privacy, you still have to voice that. Be like, this is my account, but just reassure that person that you are my person. I'm not here to like talk to other girls. I just appreciate these things, but this is what it is. Whatever like situation it is, I think it still comes down to being open and honest. But in saying that, like you said, not everyone's the same as us, where we're very open about everything and share everything. If you are uncomfortable with sharing with your partner and navigating these boundaries, how would you go about it?
Man, just say it. Just communicate it. Hey, I think that's the biggest thing, is just talking about it. Maybe the people self-conscious about the conversation and they feel a certain way, but they're not wanting or not willing to bring it up, or they just don't like the confrontation. But I just see it from a perspective of, look, if it makes you feel insecure for whatever reason it is, and it's okay to feel insecure, right?
I think it's okay to even voice that you're insecure.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm not comfortable with answering this right now, or like, yeah, just voice your insecurity. And I think that helps the other person understand, rather than you being like, oh, why are you asking me about it? That kind of creates this distance and misunderstanding.
Yeah, that's right. You would rather fucking throw it on the table and be like, look, this is
Whoops.
this is my category. Oh, well, this is my resume of shit that I am insecure about, and things that I need you to help me with this.
Well, I don't think you need to put it that way.
I don't. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Just you need to fucking talk about it, all right? Because you can't read someone else's mind and feelings without saying anything.
Well, yeah, obviously that's us. Like we like to be a complete open book. I think I can say for both of us, we don't like to be surprised by anything that we don't know. And it's just easier for us to build that trust and bond and relationship if we knew things prior. So I think that's why it works well for us to just be open and honest about everything.
Yeah, which is true. To summarize this whole episode, what are 3 approaches that we can take
in asking
the question
partners
respectfully, I guess, if you want to put it that way?
Wait,
Wait, relax.
Build that relationship first. Get to know each other. Again, coming from that context that you guys only just met, you guys are interested in each other. Get to know each other as friends, and really know what they like, their values and all that. And then once it gets into that deeper conversation, just be open and honest and just ask about certain things in relationships. Maybe what are you hoping for? Like what do you see, where do you see us going in the future? And then maybe that might lead into something that's happened in the past. Like they might bring it up, or you might want to ask some questions. Just be curious, but again, don't approach it in terms of asking about the other ex, like the ex and what they were like, what they did. It's really getting to know this person that you like and what they were like in their past relationship
Yeah, so you're focusing on your current relationship.
while trying to get to know what they were like or what they are like as a person in a relationship.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good one, mate. That's a fucking good one. The other one I'd like to add to that is don't be afraid to ask. Just use hypothetical questions. Like I did in my earlier days, I used that heaps, and that helped me bring out and unravel certain things with my past relationships. And knowing those things fucking helped me with the relationships at the time too.
Actually, I think a third point is going in when you ask these questions, go in with an open mind. Don't go in with like judgments or thoughts and anticipations. Just be open so that if you go into it and they're like, yeah, I actually used to be a player or I used to sleep with quite a few people, still go in with an open mind, especially if you really want this relationship to work rather than going in with some sort of judgment. I don't know if judgment is the right word, but these things that like preempt thoughts about a certain situation.
Yeah. No, I think those are good tippos for how we would essentially handle a situation like this. Likewise, we're not perfect. This is just how we, I guess, from our experiences, what we did and what helped us build that foundation that helped us with our relationship.
But we're curious to know what you think. Should you ask your partner about their past relationships?
Yeah. Do you agree with us? It's okay if you don't.
Let us know in our DMs.
Yeah. But again, thank you for joining us in our episode, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Goodbye.
Peace.